is hotline. We're not just talk, we're substance.
Welcome back to the hotline. Michael Sharpe here with you. We go on till 2 o'clock, but we now have time and space before Mr. Charles Buchanan, the communications manager of the National Water Communication, or Commission, communication, I like that. The caller has started out the bowling. He called you Mr. Buck, so clearly he's your friend. But he has has put down some pace bowling for you as it relates to a saddle. Didn't know that's what they call that in terms of, you know, he has to dig 35,000 each time. Yeah, come on now, you could do better than that, Mr. Buck. What's that?
Well, the description the caller gave in terms of cutting costs and the recommendation he made in that regard is quite logical. And in fact, as I understand it, that's what we do in most cases. If you have several persons, there's no point to us having 10 pipes being laid crossing the road to the same point on the opposite side. So we would normally have larger size distribution mains that go into, so let's say on the Hanover main road, since he's going from Hanover, let's say on the road to Lucy, you have a 12-inch main. When you get to Elgintown or somewhere along the line, you need a smaller distribution pipe that goes into a smaller community. So you may take off a 4-inch pipe that goes into a large community, and then into a lane you may bring a 2-inch from that 4-inch pipe. It's only when you are close to the persons that you would then individually cut across the road to give their connection. For a lane that you already have established dwellings and potential customers, we would make a larger connection, and then from that have persons directly connected. What you might have happening though is where there is no evidence of development or occupation of some of the lands. So someone comes into us at a time when they were the only person who's living in that particular area.
A time lapse on you.
Right. So we make a connection based on what exists at that point in time. And then 5-6 years later, you have a number of other persons coming to the area. So you would then perhaps not be able to use the original connection to serve both because it was never intended. So sometimes that might account for some issues, but by and large, the Commission's policy is if we're going to serve a group of persons, we seek to work out the most economical and effective way of delivering the service closest to them, and then branch off to the individual households or the individual property connections.
Mr. Buchanan, solar, why not do it instead of using this chlorine?
As the customer started, the caller started, I thought they were speaking of solar in respect of our energy use, and indeed we are looking at various options of reducing our energy costs and diversifying our energy usage, and solar is indeed a part of that mix that we are currently doing. I must say that in some ways the nature of the Commission's operation does not naturally lend itself to the utilization of some of these renewable energy forms because of two things. One, we have a whole heap of different areas across the country where we need electricity. We're not like a single factory location where your energy need is in one place and you can build a infrastructure at one point. We have more than 1,000 locations across the country where we need electricity. So because of that dispersed nature of our operations and our energy demands, it creates a problem because in most cases, where we have the need for the energy might not be the best location for the type of renewable that is being desired. The second major issue though is that solar use is not always, the technology is improving, but it does not always provide us with the amount of electricity that we need for our heavy duty pumps. So for example, the demand for pumping that we need on a large water treatment facility or a large pumping station is significantly higher than someone would need for a household.
Yes, yes.
So some persons might be able, or next door neighbor might be able to meet all of their energy needs
Yes.
by using solar. But because we have a greater energy demand, we might not be able to effectively meet our pumping needs.
Your battery place would have to be larger than your pumping station.
Absolutely. that's quite literally so.
That's what happens.
So we have those general issues, but as a general commitment, the Commission is committed to exploring and developing all the range of renewable energies. In fact, I think we have a commitment that in the next 2 years or so, we should be taking something like 7% of our energy demand from renewable sources. We have an energy cost reduction program that's actively being implemented as part of our ongoing strategy. But I think that wasn't the question the caller was speaking to. They were speaking to use of solar in terms of as a part of the water treatment process.
Yes.
And there are alternative means of treating water other than using chlorine as a disinfectant. It is true. There is UV treatment, where essentially you're using ultraviolet radiation to remove any pathogens that are in the water. But most, if not all, of the alternatives to chlorination essentially fall down on one area where chlorination is the strongest. Chlorination provides the Commission or any other water utility with what we refer to as residual chlorine, which allows it does not take treatment just at the treatment plant, but it facilitates treatment along the distribution line.
Okay.
So whereas for the other treatment modalities, you may be able to treat at your treatment plant and bring it to the same quality standard, chlorination says, I'll bring it to this quality here, but I will guarantee you that as the water travels along the pipeline, there is residual chlorine in the water that allows it to destroy any pathogens caught along the pipeline.
Yes.
So that provides an exceptionally good advantage, whereas most of the other treatment modalities would see you treating the water at the treatment plant and it's great there, but after that, it can't handle anything.
Yes.
If, let's say, the pipe breaks on its way to the customer and some dirt particles are introduced into the pipeline, with other treatment modalities, there is no residual treatment capacity in the pipeline for that. So separate apart from other technical issues, I would just want to suggest that that's one of the reasons why chlorination as the main disinfectant disinfection process for water treatment remains the most used and the most viable around the world, despite many other modalities being tried.
Have they said chlorine is good for your teeth?
The argument has gone a number of different ways. But what the residual we have to ensure is that it is not harmful to anyone, a person, but good enough to zap any invisible pathogens that are in the water.
Okay. Now I know pathogens are not good.
No.
Pathogens are not
any disease, potentially disease-causing organism that may be there, they're not visible, but they can be quite harmful.
Just as an aside, somebody mentioned, the gentleman, what's his name again, Mr. Buchanan? Him just always tell you what the problems are, but him don't tell you what the solution. The corporate area water problems. You know.
So we'll do it the other way around this time. We'll talk about the solutions
That is
before
correct.
we tell them.
That's right. That's right.
Generally, the National Water Commission has developed what a capital investment plan, for example, for a period of about 15 years to take us to 2030. And that capital investment plan essentially outlines the Commission's assessment of what it is that we would need to put in place as a utility to meet the expectations of the Jamaican public and to meet our own standards. And that basic program says that we would need to invest somewhere in the region of 3.5 billion US dollars to be able to make the infrastructure come up to the standard that we desire it to be. That would involve massive improvement projects all across the country. It would involve replacement of large segments of our pipeline network that are aged and well past their engineering life. So we have some 11,000 plus kilometers of water mains all across the country. This is the same as the distance between here and South Africa. It's a whole heap of pipes.
Let me
if
get
they
it.
were end to end.
Let me get and appreciate it. You have 11,000 kilometers of
water pipelines stretching across the country.
Wow, and for those of us who want to go to South Africa, we could get to South Africa before we walk out this.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
And then you add to that about 500 kilometers of sewer mains.
Yes.
These are the wastewater pipes for transporting sewage, because we don't have as much sewage mains as we do have water mains. So, but much of the existing infrastructure, pipelines under the ground, are old. And so some of the townships across the country that received water the earliest are now at a stage where that early advantage of having received early
it's
service
a disadvantage now because your system is older.
Is now older.
Yes.
And excepting for those that have already been replaced, many of them date back more than 70 years. Depending on the nature of the environment and the conditions under which the pipes are operating and the type of pipe in the first place, you usually get some 30 to 40 years of useful life out of a pipeline network. And we have been using most, if not all, of our pipes much beyond those useful lives. So the replacement improvement works that would be required is in that region of 3.5 billion US dollars.
Yes.
I could indicate some more in terms of, particularly in terms of Kingston and St. Andrew, some of the more short-term, more immediate needs. We are spending already some 42.5 million US dollars over 5 years to be completed in 2020 to do NRW reduction, and that is being spent right now. For it requires us putting in place not so much replacing pipeline network as much as putting in place valves and redefining the way in which the pipelines across the city are incorporated, interconnected, and operate effectively.
I think
that's going on.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that most people would have is that, yes, I hear you, I hear the long-term requirements and the good news that is to come should we raise these funds. But for example, Cassia Park, where there's no water now, the sections of Kingston that you have to be sharing it. They might not hear you because their immediate need is in front of them. Water is life, and not have any, I'm dying.
Absolutely, and it's one of those great challenges, and I fully understand the difficulty of how do you respond in the short term to a need which requires as well, or perhaps even more so, a long-term proper fix. And so we are trying to put in place some short-term measures. So right now, I remind the listeners that the main reason for the water supply challenges right now, since December 8th, that has been impacting the western side of the corporate area, all from Duane Park, Patrick City, along the boulevard, Mullines Gardens, Kasha Park, Olympic Way, all of those areas are being directly impacted by the damage which occurred to our 18-inch Ferry pipeline that takes more than 5 million gallons of water each day to supply these areas. So that pipe was broken. The unfortunate thing is that whereas many other previous breaks on that 18-inch pipeline, as well as the other, the 33-inch pipeline that we have out there, were able to be repaired within a 36 to 48 hour period, and people were without water for just 2 to 3 days. In this particular case, the break has occurred at a location that makes it effectively inaccessible and irreparable. I hasten to make sure, I heard, I think it is Mr. Coombs, favorite callers on the program, saying he couldn't understand why about the pipe being 35 feet below ground, because we couldn't have dug to lay pipes 35 feet underground at the time. And he's right in that regard. The pipe was never laid 35 feet below the ground, but now the pipe is, the pipe was laid about 10 feet underground. But what was the ground level previously is not now the ground level, based on the work that's taking place to construct the highway. In addition,
they've lifted the roads.
They have lifted the roads much higher, and unfortunately, the area in which the break occurred is the area in which they are building or have built the overpass out between Hydale, just beyond Hydale, coming back towards 6 miles. The structures supporting the overpass are effectively on top of the area where that pipe has broken. So when you combine the amount of area that we would have to dig through some of these construction elements,
now become a superstructure.
Absolutely. And then dig the 10 feet of earth that was previously all that we would have needed to do. So
what's the plan around that?
The plan, we're now trying to shift water. So for the last month or so, we have been trying to improve the process by which we shift water from different systems to assist in making up for this deficit created by that pipeline being out of operation. Obviously, those other systems cannot effectively serve both their regular service areas and these additional areas in the way that the old pipeline that was dedicated to serving along this corridor was able to. So there are a number of customers that are being impacted. We think somewhere in the region of 20 to 30,000 NWC customers who are being impacted by this. I think in total we think it's about just over 100,000 persons, because each customer
times 5
times something.
Okay, so that's the real impact.
Yes.
So what is there? You're sharing it on a schedule.
We are sharing it on a schedule basis that we have developed. But I hasten to add that water supply schedules, unfortunately, are not as good at keeping time as some others. So, for example, when you start pumping operations, or you start distributing water from a particular source, the water has to travel at a certain rate of speed in the pipeline. You don't want it to gallop too fast, because then you might just end up creating a problem in your pipeline and damage your pipeline. So you're trying to make sure you do so gradually. it takes time because even the customer won't receive it when the water is passing outside their gate, because the pipeline, the mains, have to be filled or
Yes.
become what we call charged
Yes.
before the customer starts getting it. If you are at a slight elevation, it means that the persons who are lower than you are gonna get before you.
Gravity.
And if they have tanks and are deciding that their tanks are in line, so their tanks are being filled before the water charges out the main and then backs up to come to you even more. So there are a number of reasons why we may start directing water towards a particular community or area at 6 o'clock, but many of the customers at 8 o'clock, 2 hours later, may still tell us that we don't turn on the thing. It's not necessarily that we haven't done so, it's just that in the nature of things, and separate and apart from the other things, because you may end up having air blockages because of something that, so the water may have been sent in your direction and it doesn't get there. It requires a lot of troubleshooting and creates a number of problems. Worse, if you have a scenario like we have, where on a regular basis we end up having a break on one of the main sources on which we are depending now to serve these areas. So we're supplying these customers who would normally be dependent on the Ferry pipeline from Mona and from Constant Spring. We have regular breaks that are occurring on the Constant Spring pipeline because that also is in an area in which a lot of work is taking place. So last week, for example, we had 4 such occasions over a 1-week period where the large diameter pipes along Constant Spring Road broke, and each of those 4 occasions required that we shut down the Constant Spring treatment plant in order to effect the repairs. In most cases we were able to do the repairs within 12 hours or so, but the plant had to be shut down, so the schedule was disrupted and thrown off again. It's very difficult. I do understand when customers say they are not getting it on the schedule. So I'm urging persons to recognize that we're doing the best we can to keep as close to the schedule as we possibly can, but it will not come as clockwork.
Somebody said that the schedule is rescheduling, but now I understand what's going on here. People are taking it off before you get it. That's where you're in the line and you're fixed in the line because you can't move your house. I'll move it and shuffle it. Yes, you can't come further up the line. While we have the water being shared and moving around, and that seems to be the way you have to deal with it, you speak of a drought condition elsewhere.
But before I leave to the drought condition elsewhere, I should probably also point out that we have made arrangements and are completing the technical requirements to add a further 700,000 gallons of water into the system. It won't make up for the 5 million that we are losing from not having the pipeline in place, but it will help. We have made an arrangement with a private source in the Kasha Park area.
Private source?
Yeah, there's a well source.
Okay.
A well developer has a well in that area, and we have, in the exigency of the situation, made an arrangement where we are purchasing bulk water from them. That we expect during the course of this week, when that is put into the network, will make some difference. It won't make up for and bring us back to where we
So it might mean the people in Kasha Park might feel we'll get there early because they happen to be in Kasha Park.
Absolutely.
So Kasha Park help is on its way.
And that will help us because every area that we are able to say your needs are being met, we're then able to concentrate more of our attention and the remaining resources in the other areas. So
how much water to come again from that well source?
about $700,000. So 700,000
I understand. It's expensive.
gallons per day.
Yes.
It's against the ferry pipeline would have been giving us 5 million gallons.
Yeah.
So this is
Well, sometimes all you need is a trip, a tip on your tongue, and it's so hot.
yes.
Yes.
So we are trying to implement these things, and we are also working at expediting the replacement pipeline for the damaged ferry pipeline.
Yes.
And we expect, based on the commitments from the National Works Agency and the contractors, that they should be able to complete that set of replacement pipelines by the end of March,
Yes.
when we would be able to essentially retire the damaged section of pipe
Okay.
and still be able to serve all our customers in the corporate area.
Norbrook. You have something in the pipeline for Norbrook?
Well, in fact, as part of the non-revenue water reduction program that we indicated earlier, we are working on making sure that some new pipeline is to be laid on Norbrook Drive in that area. It's a short distance of pipeline that we are laying during the course of this week. We don't expect it to make a major negative impact on people's water supply, except for those times when we'll have to do some cutting and crossing. But it may have some traffic impacts. We're doing our best to make sure that we work as much as possible outside of the peak traffic.
When is that again?
So let's say I think the plan is basically that we'll start working. We'll work, let's say, sometime after 9 in the mornings. We'll make sure that the early morning rush is over. We'll also complete some of the work before the evening rush hour, and then we'll do some of the work during the night.
Okay.
All of it
After 10.
yes, intended to facilitate, to reduce the negative impact on traffic flows and other.
What benefit do people in Norbrook can look for as a result of this?
In fact,
will there be any
that
difference?
will facilitate an improved operation and improved water supply, as well as improved capacity for management of the water in that area. So the benefits are there. We will be better able to operate the water supply system in that area, and persons will see it in the quality of service they will get.
Drought condition.
Yes. Across the country, there are about 60 or so of the Commission's water supply systems that are currently being impacted by significant drought conditions, or let's just say below normal yields.
Yes.
In some cases, we have seen declines to as low as 25% of what we normally get, and these systems.
Where geographically?
Okay, these systems are scattered. So we have the new mill system, for example, in Hanover. Has had significant declines. About 5 systems in St. James, including Endeavour, Mafuta, Montpelier, Reading. Those systems in St. James have seen significant declines. We have also had the Moravia system in Manchester has seen declines like this. There are several systems in St. Anne that have seen significant decline, as well as some systems in St. Mary and Portland.
I'm getting the wrap-up signal, but when you say these conditions are like that, what can the customers do?
In most instances, the best a customer can do is to conserve on their use of water, and to plan for potential periods of interruptions in supply. So we urge customers to expect in these instances that their water supply may be intermittent, because we just don't have enough water to continue. We may put in place some regulated supply where we supply one community one day and another on another day, or depending on how the system is laid out in their particular community. But expect some interruption in their service, and make the best use of the water that they get.
Again, thank you so much, Charles Buchanan, Communications Manager, National Water Commission. Always a pleasure talking to you, sir.
You're most welcome. My pleasure.